Hi, my name is Mark O'Byrne, the Research Director of GoldCore.com, your precious metals storage specialist. And it gave me great pleasure to recently catch up with a man who I have a lot of respect for, Mr. Jim Rogers. Jim is one of the leading investment experts in the world. His track record shows that over the years. And what I like about Jim is he takes a long-term perspective in terms of finance investments, in particular regard to the monetary system and the fiat Ponzi monetary system that we have of today. So it's always interesting to get his perspective. I got his perspective on gold in the short term and the medium long term, on silver in particular, how these metals have broken out. I think it's a very opportune time to be talking to Jim and getting his perspective, because we have seen gold in particular break out in all currencies and hit all-time record highs in sterling in recent days, given the Brexit and the wider economic uncertainties in the US, and now gold is breaking out in dollar terms as well. So yeah, it's an interesting interview. I think you'll enjoy it. Take care. Let's just dive straight into it. I don't know if you saw overnight, gold prices, silver prices up, particularly in sterling terms, and sterling, the pound has obviously fallen against the dollar, the euro, all currencies has fallen against gold and silver. But I think of most importance, and it hasn't been covered in the media yet, and hopefully they will cover today, gold has nearly touched all-time record highs in pound sterling. So
right,
I think
Mark,
the record high is...
That's not gold going up, gold and silver going up. That's sterling going down.
Absolutely.
Gold is far from its all-time high in other currencies, and especially the US dollar.
Yeah, exactly. And it's basically, it's nominalized as well. So it touched 1,175 pounds per ounce overnight, and the record high is 1,179 pounds per ounce. So just your view on, obviously, you know, your big picture thesis over the years has long been that all these fiat currencies are massively vulnerable, given the giant monetary experiment we're in for the last 50 years. So, but I'm interested to get your view on, you know, with sterling now, it looks particularly vulnerable. Obviously, you know, all the political uncertainty with Boris Johnson just elected, Brexit, all the rest of it. Do you think sterling is more vulnerable than the dollar at this moment in time, or what's your view on that?
Well, certainly at this moment in time, to quote you, but I mean, the UK has huge debts. The UK is one of the most indebted nations in the world on any kind of comparative data. Yeah, they don't have as much debt as the US, but still, you know, it's a much smaller country, and they've got huge, gigantic debts, which people don't seem to pay too much attention to. I pay attention to it. So the sterling is not going down because of Johnson. I mean, maybe he's contributing, maybe he's a needle causing the pinprick. But no, sterling's got huge problems, and whatever happens, it's going to get worse. And it looks to me like the political problems are certainly going to make it much, much worse. I mean, the UK could break up. You know, it's called the United Kingdom. It's been around for, what, 400 years? It may not be a United Kingdom again.
Absolutely, yeah. And we in Ireland are particularly aware of that, and proposes a particular set of risks here in Ireland, and opportunities as well. It's an interesting conundrum and dilemma we face. And just your view. I mean, everyone's trying to figure out what's going to be the pin that pricks this bubble. I mean, that's the two big questions are: what is going to create this next crisis? Is it centering on the banks and concern about banks? Is it the sovereign debt crisis? Is it the currencies? And most people seem to believe it's going to be the banks, and then the sovereigns, and then the currencies. But there's some people are saying, well, maybe not. Maybe we'll go straight into a currency crisis, and possibly we could go into a sterling crisis first.
Mark, I'm not sure what difference it makes how we get there. We fall off the side of the cliff. Who cares whether you're in a car or motorcycle or walking in the dark? Many things that could cause it, including Brexit. As I say, I mean, Brexit may turn out to be much more Brexit than we, you know, if Northern Ireland pulls out or Scotland pulls out. If Scotland pulls out and takes the oil, whew, the only thing Great Britain and the United Kingdom has to sell right now is the English language and Scottish oil. If the Scots leave and take their oil, where does sterling go?
Yeah, well, they have the Queen as well. A lot of tourism going into London, but I agree that's not a way to have a sustainable economy going forward. And they're particularly vulnerable as well on the currency side because of what Gordon Brown did as well in terms of selling all their gold at the bottom of the marketplace. I think it poses a unique set of monetary risks to them that a lot of other currencies, the major countries and currencies don't have, such as the US and the EU and indeed China to a degree, who have been building their gold reserves.
Well, you may have a lot of, we are going to have a lot of currency crisis in the next 3 or 4 years. There's no question about that. We happen to be talking about sterling, but you think the US dollar is a sound currency? I own a lot of US dollars, Mark, I want you to know, but I don't own it because it's sound. It's a disaster. I own it because the other currencies are going to be worse in people's minds. And when there's turmoil everywhere, people are going to say, US dollar is a safe haven. It's not a safe haven, but people think it is. No, they're not going to buy the euro. They're not going to buy the Australian dollar. No, there's not much left except the US dollar, and it's a mess. It'll certainly get overpriced. It may well turn into a bubble, depending on how bad the world's turmoil is. If it turns into a bubble, I hope I'm smart enough to sell it. I mean, you have to sell bubbles. I don't want to sell the US dollar. I would like my children to have it someday, but if it's a bubble, you have to sell, Mark. Nobody recovers from a bubble for a long time.
And is that your sense that you think we might get one more rally in the dollar and see a flight into both dollar and gold, as we saw a little bit of, obviously, in September, October 2008 when Lehman Brothers happened?
It's not quite the way I see it, but I do see the turmoil coming, getting very serious. You know, it's been over 10 years since we've had an economic problem in the US. It's the longest in American history. It could go on 20 years. It doesn't have to end, but they always have ended. So we're getting closer to the end for whatever reason. The US dollar, as the world has serious turmoil everywhere, including the UK, including Europe and other places, then we're going to have the worst economic problem in my lifetime. You know, in 2008, Mark, we had a problem because of too much debt. Oh my God, the debt since then has skyrocketed all over the world.
Yeah, it's astronomical. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the pinprick is.
No, you're absolutely right.
There are many things that are going to make the next problem very, very, very serious. And an alternative is the US dollar. I expect the US dollar to get overpriced. I expect it to maybe turn into a bubble. But often when that happens, gold goes down. You know, if the dollar is very, very strong, gold is weak. So my plan, but don't pay too much attention. My plan is that the US dollar is going to get overpriced. I'm going to sell my US dollars. And as gold goes down in that crisis, as it often does, I will put my US dollars into gold and I will get rich. You see how easy it is to get rich, Mark?
It's very, very simple, Jim. I know.
Rich yeah, very easy.
Yeah, well, yeah, what you just said there takes the emotion out of it, and I think you're right. And it's all about diversification, as you know. And I haven't spoken about your track record. You know, you've been one of the greatest investors of the last 30, 40 years. Your track record speaks for itself. So I'm not going to blow smoke up where just you deserve some respect for your track record. But
no, I don't want it. But I will say to you, I want you to make sure you understand. I do own plenty of gold. I've owned gold for many years. I haven't sold any gold, but I haven't bought any serious gold since 2010. You know, I'm waiting. It may not happen. I'm waiting for a major bottom in gold. Gold peaked in US dollars 1920 or 1911, whatever it was. We haven't had a big correction since then. I expect one to come in the next crisis or the next turmoil. And hopefully I'm smart enough to sell my US dollars and buy gold. Or maybe it'll be something else, I don't know. But at the moment, my plan would be to buy a lot more gold if I'm smart enough.
Yeah, and you already have healthy allocations to the dollar, to gold, to silver. You're properly diversified, and unfortunately most retail investors aren't properly diversified, and they should be buying. And I suppose you would share the view they should dollar cost average and get that initial position anyway, and then when there are dips, as there's bound to be, and potentially a very sharp correction, as you're saying, they accumulate more.
Well, everybody should certainly own some gold as an insurance policy, if nothing else. Everybody watching this show has health insurance. You hope you never use your health insurance, but you have it. Likewise with gold, you should certainly have some gold as insurance. And if things get cheaper, if gold gets cheaper, you might buy it more. I hope to buy a lot more if and when it unfolds.
Yeah, absolutely. And your view on silver, you've long been, you know, an advocate of silver and seeing it as undervalued relative to gold. At the ratio, gold-silver ratio 90-1, is that still your view?
Well, I still own gold. Yeah, I mean, it's both. I still own both. If I were buying one today, as is often the case in the past few years, I'd rather buy silver than gold, just because on a historic basis, silver's cheaper. I'm not buying either. Not buying either. But if somebody came in and said you got to buy gold or silver, I would buy silver today. But I'm not buying either right now.
Good. Very good. That makes sense. Do you mind if I show people the gold-silver ratio? And because I just think it's yeah. Because I think I'd like you to just to get your view on it. I'll just show this now. I can share the screen here. Just in preparation for talking to you, I obviously was looking at the sterling and then the sharp falls there. Can you see the screen there, Jim?
I see you, but I don't see anything.
You don't see me, Nat. It's coming. Do you see it there now?
I do see. Let's see. What do I see?
So that's the gold price in sterling terms. So as we said, it's just reached nearly touched an all-time record high in British pounds. And I mean, this shows the low of 1449 and the high is 1178. We're now at 1175. So, and as you said, it's not that gold is going up, it's that this shows beautifully how sterling has lost massive value. It's down, sterling is down 7,740% since 1971. So right there, that shows you why you should not keep your savings in fiat currencies. But the bigger thing, the thing that I want to talk to you about is this great chart from Nick Laird from Gold Charts or Us, which shows this is the gold-silver ratio on the bottom part of this chart. So you can see we're up above, I think we got as high as 94-1 on the gold-silver ratio, and we come back to about 85-1 because there's a bit of a rally in silver in recent months and years. So, recent weeks, should I say? Obviously, silver had a bit of catching up to do. So, longer term, do you think we're going to go back to, obviously, in as recently as 2011, we got to a ratio, it was $1,900 divided by $50. We got down to about 17-1. You think we're going back there?
Well, I have no idea, Mark. The problem with charts like this, and I've certainly been looking at them for decades, is that they fluctuate. You prove the point. Anybody looking at this since 1970 say been great fluctuations. There's no magic in it. As you may know, the Bible said gold and silver, the ratio is 16-1. I don't know if you're old enough to remember the Hunt brothers. But Hunt brothers,
well, I've read all about them. Yeah.
The Hunt brothers were very devout Christians, and they said the Bible says the ratio should be 16-1. So they bought a lot of silver. Well, you know the rest of the story. First of all, they got wiped out. And second of all, it hasn't been 16-1 for a long, long, long time. And just because the Bible says it or because it has been there historically or anything, doesn't mean it cannot change. So yes, these are interesting charts. Certainly interesting charts, and maybe gold will go back to a better ratio. I mean, silver and gold will go back to a more historic ratio or something. Maybe we'll go back to 16. If so, I'll make a whole lot of money on my silver. That's for sure.
Yeah, it'll be time to reduce allocation.
But Mark, I'm not buying silver or gold right now because of historic ratios.
Yeah,
I'm buying
absolutely.
Silver and gold in the end because of what's happening in the world.
Absolutely, and this is just one indicator of many, and I suppose it's important to focus on the supply demand and the fundamentals of the silver market. And but I do think it's interesting, and the top part shows just how gold is obviously it's it came off, and it's actually it's increased quite a bit, and silver is lagging, and that's what it tends to do. As you know, silver lagged very much in the 1970s bull market, and it lagged again in the 2000s bull market. So it does tend to catch up, and when it catches up very sharply indeed. So just on that, do you think in terms of what's going to propel silver prices higher, do you think it's a physical demand, potentially creating a short squeeze in the futures market, or what do you think is going to be the key driver for higher silver prices?
Well, it'll be gold. I mean, silver is going to follow gold. I mean, conceivably, somebody's going to come up with an invention to make silver more in demand, and there are physical reasons that silver should be more popular than gold, but still, unless you can change human beings' mentality, silver's always going to be cheaper, and usually it's going to be substantially cheaper. I told you I'm going to buy both, and I will buy when it's time to buy. I'll probably buy more silver at the time, because I presume silver will be still cheaper on any historic basis. I mean, your chart makes it very, very, very clear. Silver is much cheaper on a historic basis.
Yeah,
and for most of history, silver has been the money of choice for most people. If you go to Africa, they always use silver. Jesus Christ was sold for 30 pieces of silver, not for gold, because silver was what they used as money in that part of the world. So no, silver has a much bigger, and not longer, a much bigger history. So I certainly will be buying silver again when it's time.
Absolutely. I know that. I don't know if you know. You obviously know. In Spain, plata is the word for money and the word for silver. In argent in French is the word for money and is the word for silver. And silver, the words for money and silver in most languages around the world are actually interchangeable. Even here in Ireland, the word for money is arrogate. And arrogate, our money throughout history, we use cows. We've always been very fond of cows and cattle. So cattle was a form of currency, and then small pieces of silver were currency. So it is money throughout history. Yeah.
As I said, silver has a wider history of being used as money. In the United States, when we were founded back in the 1790s, that passed the Money Act. It was silver. Silver was the measure of money when the United States started out. I mean, all that changed, but still, silver has a great history, and silver will continue to have a great history. So don't sell your silver. I plan to buy more.
Yeah, and what you're saying there is universal. It's also in Asia and these big growing economies, and you're the man who has very much, had the thesis that this is the Chinese century, the Asian century. In India, the rupee is, again, that's the silver element with the rupee, and they've huge affinity for silver. Both in China, more in history, but I'd like to get your opinion. What's your sense of Chinese people? Obviously, they've huge affinity for gold. Is there a bit of demand? What's your sense of demand in China for silver?
Oh no, well, the Chinese money was silver for a long time. In the 19th century, the English were going in and selling them opium to get their silver, and that's what they were getting.
Smart strategy. Drugs for real money.
But the currency, and even in the 20th century, the currency was based on silver in China. Now, don't think gold doesn't have a place, and hasn't had a place in world history, including in China. But no, silver has been much more widely used historically than gold. But I own both, and I own more gold than I do silver at the moment.
Yeah, very interesting. And there's a bit of a debate amongst some of the precious metals analysts. I don't know if you've seen that. Is it Alistair McLeod in Gold Money and Ted Butler? And they're basically saying, I actually have the chart here. There's been a huge increase in the transparent silver holdings. So this is the chart here on the right from our friend Nick Laird, again, from Gold Charts or Us. And you can see it's very interesting just how sticky that silver demand has. So this is basically all the published holdings of silver around the world in the various repositories, mutual funds, and all the ETFs. But it's quite a big spike up, particularly on the SLV, obviously the biggest silver ETF in the world, and also the COMEX. So the debate then is, well, who's buying? Because we know the retail investor isn't buying gold or silver yet. They're still clueless, unfortunately. Who's buying is the people who understand the risks in the world, as you've outlined in terms of fiat currencies, and a lot of just repeat business and people adding to allocations. But so these guys are saying, is this institutional demand, Western institutional demand? I think Alistair is saying that he believes it's Chinese demand is coming into the silver market. Ultimately, nobody knows, and I think that there's just demand from all these sources. But do you have a sense of it yourself?
I don't know or care.
Yeah, okay. It doesn't matter. But
I can see the fact. So what? You know, maybe it's South America. It doesn't matter to me who's buying it. Somebody's buying it. And if these statistics are correct, these are people who put it in reserves. I mean, these are not people using silver to make cutlery or for teeth or for medicine or something. Whoever it is, they're buying silver and stockpiling it. Now, that could also be a negative because that means you got big stockpiles. I'd rather have small stockpiles because then when the demand comes, there's no supply. But I mean, this is fine. I expect a huge move in silver and gold eventually because throughout history, Mark, when people lose confidence in government or in money, they've always turned to gold and silver. Maybe they shouldn't. Many academic studies throughout history saying gold and silver are worthless. Who cares? You cannot tell French peasants, you cannot tell this American peasant that gold and silver are worthless and even if they are, the rest of us think that they're worthwhile, and I and other peasants like me will be buying silver and gold when the time comes.
Absolutely, very good. So this is the silver price in sterling, as we said. You know, we've broken out in sterling in a huge way, and gold is up at this record high, and so it's interesting. So you're sort of saying it will be supply demand, it will be the fundamentals, but it sounds like you think gold potentially, silver is obviously correlated with gold, and gold potentially could be the driver. And then we alluded to the currency crisis. It feeds into then the currency reset and the central banks. I don't know if you saw the piece by Willem Middelkoop recently, which was on the OMFIF, the Official Monetary and Financial Institutions Forum. And basically, you and many people have been talking about this for years, that, at some stage we may move to some form of gold standard, de facto gold standard. And so potentially that's the catalyst, obviously, for much higher silver prices. So what's your view on that? And I think this story is much more important now in the light of a brewing sterling crisis and the various risks to these fiat currencies that we've been talking about for many years.
Well, your charts show what many people have discussed. Gold and silver have been a defense, a way to hedge yourself against the loss of currencies. Sterling is in trouble right now, and if you own gold and silver, you don't know sterling's in trouble. You don't care. You're happy that it's in crisis because you're making money. So once again, gold and silver are helping protect and save some people against currency problems. Gold and silver always have, and they always will, as I say. Old peasants like me don't care what the academics say. We're going to buy gold and silver to protect ourselves in the end.
Absolutely, that makes sense. It's funny, and the academics, they're actually quite positive on gold. A lot of the research, academic research, is showing gold as a hedge and safe haven, and obviously history shows that. But on silver, they don't seem to realize how well silver has performed over the long term. This is silverprice.org, and everyone talks about the volatility of silver, and it's a risky commodity and all that nonsense. But if you look at the performance of silver over the long term, obviously we had huge volatility. We went into a massive bubble 2011, 2012. And then we had a massive correction. But if you look at the long-term returns of silver, can you see that there, the silver price performance % annual change?
Mark, don't tell them. Let them think it's when the price stay low, and when the time comes, we'll be able to buy it cheaper and buy more. Don't tell them. Don't educate them. Let them find out the hard way.
Well, I think about unfortunately the society that we live in won't be functioning too well if we don't have some people who have a degree of material well-being going on. And my remit has been since 2003 protecting and growing the wealth of our clients. So I have to try and educate them. And I know sometimes it feels like what's the word, a fruitless task, and a huge amount of energy has gone into it over the years. But in time, the penny will drop. And I think you're probably right. I think it will take a massive crisis before people actually realize, including the boffins and the eggheads and the academics, you know.
Well, that's why silver will go up more, because as you just pointed out, there are many, many people who aren't aware of silver, don't care about it, think it's useless. Good, let them, let them, let them. And so that's why I had rather buy silver than gold if I were buying either now, because silver will go up more because it's more depressed. So don't tell everybody, just let them find,
Yeah,
let
yeah,
them find out after you and I have stocked up with all of it, and then they can come in and buy it at the top.
yeah, they'll find it the hard way, as tends to happen throughout history, and we see it clearly. The retail investor always piles in at the top, and when we told them that they should be reducing allocations, they're buying, and when it's undervalued and cheap, they don't buy, and then they're buying Facebook and Apple and Netflix and all these massively overvalued tech stocks. But just to finish this table, I mean, look at that. Sterling, obviously, we're talking about sterling today, and the sterling pound. Sterling silver has obviously massively outperformed sterling pound, and look at that, over a 20-year period, it's up 12.8% per annum. So that's outperformed the FTSE. So all these financial analysts and financial advisors talk about diversified portfolios of stocks and bonds. Silver, this frowned upon barbaric metal, volatile commodity, has actually outperformed the leading financial assets in the world. And it's just there. It's in the data. It's in the numbers.
Well, again, you're talking about sterling. So yes, the numbers are very clear in sterling. And for anybody who is a sterling citizen or investor or anything else, yes, there's no question about that.
Well, also in euros, 11.5%, in dollars, 10.6%. So it's done really well over the 20 years, in all fiat currencies.
I understand. You can also pick your years, though. If you look at sometimes, it doesn't matter.
No, you're probably right. No, you're probably right. If you did 40 years, obviously silver had a massive bear market. Yeah.
Or yes, go ahead. You say, I know you want to talk, so talk.
No. I made my little point. Sorry, go on.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, no. I was just saying you're absolutely right. That is a time frame that has been fairly positive for silver, because obviously it went up very sharply from 2003 to 2011. Then we had a massive bear market, and then we've had some slight gains as of late. But if you're absolutely right, if you did a 40-year time frame or a 50-year time frame going back to 1971, silver would not have performed as well. But I still think you probably, I'd love to get the crunch the numbers, and I wish the academics would do it, but maybe I'll have to do it myself and do it. I would say silver is probably 6-7% per annum, which is not a bad return for a lowly barbaric shiny metal.
Well, if you try go since 2011 of silver and gold, your results would be very, very different. But it doesn't matter. I remain bullish on both. I plan to buy a lot of both in the next crisis. I hope I get my timing halfway right, because I know that both are going to go much, much higher before this is over.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just to conclude, I mean, in many ways, I think you've answered this question, but it's a question we ask all our guests, which is, what do silver and gold buyers know that the majority of investors don't know?
Well, all I know is that throughout history, when people lose confidence in governments or currencies, they buy gold and silver. You see what's happening in the UK right now. People are losing confidence in sterling. I think sterling is the lowest it's been in years. I don't know how many years. That's $1.22 today. I don't remember. Well, you can look it up. Somebody can look it up. I don't think it's been US dollar 122, and certainly not in 10, 15, 20 years. So anybody who is a sterling investor or sterling citizen has protected him and made a lot of money owning silver.
Yeah. In terms of allocations, do you think, I mean, the rule of thumb is 10% on gold. Do you think you could go 5-10% gold, 5-10% silver, or what would you think?
Well, if you know a lot about silver and gold, you might go 90%. It depends on what you know. If you don't know anything, if you don't know, all you know is that your mother's wedding ring was gold. You don't know anything more about gold, and you should do some homework. Uh, it really depends on the investor. If an
Yeah,
investor
yeah,
knows a gigantic amount about Alibaba, he should put a lot of money into Alibaba and a little bit into gold and silver. But if he knows a huge amount about gold and silver, he should put a lot in gold and silver. It depends on telling somebody how to make their investments. My advice to people is don't listen to me or anybody else. Maybe you listen to Mark. Only invest in what you yourself know a lot about. If you don't know much about gold, please don't invest too much in gold. Learn about it, because everybody should have gold as insurance, as I said, and silver. But your allocation depends on you and what you know.
yeah, no, absolutely, and that goes against conventional wisdom, which is very much, keep the allocation small. But most of my clients would share with you, and they would have higher allocations than would be recommended by your standard, financial advisor in terms of portfolio theory and asset allocation. So if you know, and particularly given the scale of the risks today, why wouldn't you have higher allocations? And then, as you say, when it becomes a bubble, you decrease your allocations and you maintain that core holding in the physical bullion as financial insurance. So, and in terms of just the house, then, just to finish up, I mean, you're a physical man primarily, and I think you said that before. Would you be obviously 1,000 ounce bars are the best way to own physical silver in fully segregated and allocated in safe vaults around the world? Would you own some silver coins as well, just for that worst case scenario potentials?
I own silver coins and I own gold coins. When the time comes, the best thing will be silver and gold futures if the financial markets are still functioning, because you can make a staggering amount of money in futures markets because of the leverage. But you better get your timing right, or you can lose a staggering amount of money very quickly too. But
Yeah.
that's the very best way if and when. Now, I don't own any gold and silver futures at the moment, but I do own physical gold and silver at the moment. Depends on how good you are at timing. I'm usually terrible at it. But if and when, I hope I'm smart enough to call up and buy all the silver and gold I can futures, because that's where you really make if gold and silver go into a bubble, which I expect before it's over, then the top is unlimited. You'll make gigantic amounts of money on futures positions. I mean, you can buy futures with 5 or 10% margin. I mean, you can do the arithmetic. You can also do the arithmetic if you get it wrong.
And if there's problems with the exchanges and all the rest, but potentially, I mean, there's new exchanges coming out of Asia. Do you think that's potentially where you'll be getting that futures exposure?
Well, as I said, if the futures markets are still functioning, because in crises, who knows what can happen? War, bankruptcy, everything can go wrong when you have gigantic crises. And futures markets stock markets have closed. All markets have closed at various times, especially when things get really, really, really bad. But short of that, I hope I'm smart enough to buy gold and silver futures. I'm not going to sell my physical by any stretch of imagination, but I do hope to buy more gold and silver through the futures markets when it happens.
Very good. And I don't know if you saw, there's an interview there with James Rickards there, I think it was last week, with Greg Hunter. And he was very much, and he said this a few times, he's a strong advocate of the old monster box, a big solid monster box of 500 silver eagles from US Mint. Would you, in terms of silver coins, silver bullion coins, would you have a preference for those 1 ounce bullion coins from any type of specific mint, or a variety of the mints?
Well, I own Chinese silver coins, gold, Russian silver coins, American silver coins, Australian silver coins, Austrian. I own a lot of silver coins, in other words, from various places around the world. In the end, the beauty of silver coins is, it's a small denomination. If you go into a grocery store with a bar of gold to buy bread, you're going to have a hard time, because the guy can't make change. First of all. Second, he doesn't know if it's gold, real gold or not. A silver coin, he is more likely to recognize or accept, and he can make change. And even if he can make change, you at least get a lot of bread. With gold bars and even gold coins, it's a problem. So
Yeah,
I would say everybody should own gold and silver coins. Yes.
absolutely.
But which denomination? It doesn't matter to me. I mean, as I just got through saying, I own the UK gold coins. I own a lot of gold coins from various places.
It's all about diversification. Yeah, you're diversified in your wider portfolio and also within the precious metals component of the portfolio and the physical component of the portfolio. So and then in terms of obviously you're resident in Singapore and you've, I think you've been correct obviously in your thesis about Singapore being a very good place to be in the medium and long term, given how the world is turning, and your thesis, which my background is history, your thesis of 19th century British century, 20th century American century, and this 21st century is sort of a Chinese Asian century. In terms of storage, is Singapore still the location of choice for you? Obviously, you're resident there, so you would have a lean towards that. But would that be your primary place where you think is one of the safe locations in the world?
Well, Singapore at the moment has been and certainly is a very safe location for storage. So Switzerland is too. Austria is too. I mean, Liechtenstein is too. So far. Who knows when the crisis comes? When the crisis comes, if I were a smart general, I would invade Switzerland and go and get all the gold, because that's where it is. It's in the vaults in Switzerland. So we have to see how the world evolves. Singapore is so and is a very, very safe place and has been to keep gold and silver. But let's see how the world market is always changing. In a couple of my books, I make the point that no matter what people think today will not be the true in 15 years. And you can pick any year in history. Whatever people thought in 1900 was totally false in 1915. Everything people thought in 1930 was totally false in 1945. I mean, I can go on and on and on. My point is, yes, today Singapore. Yes, today other places. But keep an eye on the newspaper and the internet, because things are going to continue to change.
Yeah, and they're changing faster today than ever before, arguably, given technology, and there's just a whole variety of risks that were there to the system and the modern, very technologically and electricity dependent systems and societies that we have. So yeah, again, it's diversification. Have some in Singapore, have some in Switzerland, and I think Switzerland remains probably the safest location, and it's hard to beat Zurich, I think, because of a variety of reasons. I won't go into it right now, but sometimes the generals, you're right. I mean, Hitler was on the doorstep and he didn't go in there. So I think if they survive Hitler and the Nazis in World War II, I don't think anyone's going to do a land invasion of Switzerland anytime soon. And many of these generals and elites probably have some of their gold stored in Zurich. So
yes, they all do. They all have assets in Switzerland.
Exactly. So, okay, well, just before I get into, I'd like to do a little bit just on because we always talk about precious metals, and obviously there's much more to Jim Rogers than precious metals and commodities and investing. I just like to a little bit of a flavor of the man. But just before I get into it, is there anything else you want to say about the markets, where we're at today? Any parting words on that?
I will say again, perhaps the most important point is it's been over 10 years since we've had a problem. The last time we had a problem was because of too much debt. Since then, the debt everywhere has skyrocketed. Even China has a lot of debt now. In 2008 and 2009, China helped save the world with its savings. But now just be aware of what's going on, because the next time, Mark, it's going to be the worst in my lifetime. And I think I'm older than you. So it's going to be the worst in your lifetime too. So be worried, be knowledgeable, get yourself knowledgeable, and then you will get prepared.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, makes sense. And just be proactive and get ahead of it. Very good. So just in terms of the man, because obviously we know you in terms of the adventure capitalists, and it's, as I said to you before, it's something that I'd love to do, is just travel around the world on a motorbike or in an SUV, and just, I'd say you had such a wonderful adventure with your wife. So it's something, it's on the top of my bucket list, and it gave you a massive insight in terms of these societies, these economies, and how they work, and where the opportunities are, the risks and the opportunities. So, but so that's how you're known, as obviously as this highly respected investor, and rightly so. But just in terms of you yourself as an individual, what makes you tick, and what floats your boat these days? What keeps you busy when you're not looking at markets and money?
Well, Mark, first I want to tell you I make plenty of mistakes. I make all kinds of mistakes. You want to hear about my first wife? Oh my God, what a mistake! Oh, that was. So I make plenty of mistakes, but float my boat. Now I have 2 daughters. I was always against children. I used to vehemently tell people why they should not have children. Children were a waste of time, money, energy. I felt sorry for my friends who had children. I didn't have my first child till I was 60, and then I found out I was wrong. So if there's anybody here who hasn't had children, and you're old enough, don't do it too young. Go out and make sure you have children. Take a day off. Well, don't take a day off these days. Go home for lunch one day and have a lunch hour. But children, that's what floats my boat now more than anything else.
Yeah, very good. So it sounds like you're really enjoying it.
Very much.
No, it makes sense. I'm a father myself, and it's interesting the point you make there. It's rarely made. I had my children relatively late, and I think that's good, because you've done a bit of travel, you've sown your wild oats, you've seen a bit of the world, and I think you've more experience then, and I think then possibly you appreciate the children more. Whereas I do know people sometimes when they get married and have children in their 20s or even early 30s, sometimes there's regrets there that they, because children are full on. It's a full-time commitment, as we know.
It's a good thing I didn't have children in my 20s or 30s. It would have been bad for the mother, for me, for the children. It would have been bad for everybody. But maybe people can't wait. Most people cannot wait till they're 60 to have children, but it's certainly good for me that I didn't have children when I was 22.
Yeah. And in terms of day-to-day, in terms of your pastimes or exercise, what do you do besides this? Obviously, I'd say you're like me, keenly engaged with markets, and you keep an eye on what's going there. And I say you're a big reader as well. But so, what else do you like to do day-to-day?
Well, I do try to go to the gym every day. I just came from the gym now to talk to you, and I'm going back to the gym. As a matter of fact, I try to spend 2 or 3 hours a day in the gym. If I'm traveling, I cannot. But no, that's important to me. But as I said, if you ask me one thing, it's after, then exercise is my children. I try to spend as much time with them. I travel a lot. I make speeches around the world. I invest. I do all sorts of things. Do books. Just got another book coming out in Japan. So, I do other things. But my number one priority in 1919, 1920 are the 2 girls.
Yeah, very good. Well, the exercise is fundamental when you have children, and energy is everything. So you need that energy. So the 2 go absolutely intertwined, and so fascinating. All right, Jim. Well, I've taken enough of your time. It's late afternoon in Singapore, and again, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. And hope to talk to you again soon. My pleasure, Mark. Let's do it again sometime. And don't sell your silver and gold, even though it may go down for a while. Hang on. Not for a little while. Bye-bye. Thank you, Jim. Bye-bye. Thanks. Bye-bye.